This blind woman got an eye transplant and can now see the past of the donor, even her internet history. Terrifying stuff. We start off by hearing kids screaming, bruja, bruja. Oh, I know what that is. It's witch in Spanish. I learned that from playing Left 4 Dead 2 with my school friend Carlos. He also used to scream bruja every 5 minutes. We see kids throwing stones in windows and a young girl preparing to meet God. Suddenly, a spooky boy appears, helping the girl jump off the chair. Thank you. We cut to a happy sunny day and see a beautiful young girl walking with her sunglasses. Turns out she's blind, but could still get it. Her name is Sydney, and despite being visually impaired, she's still pretty attentive. She even goes full daredevil and saves this dumb skateboarder from being hit by a bus. Anyway, we learn that Sydney lost her eyesight at the age of 5, but she got used to it quickly and lives her everyday happy life. Though, she still wants to see the world. The sun, the rain, the guy behind the voice of Minute Movies. Wait, who wrote this? Sorry. Sydney even made an incredible career as a cellist. Her band celebrates the birthday of their orchestrator. I'm wondering who he is. Her dad? Her creepy uncle? Why does he hug her so intimately? Before we can answer that, Sydney goes home. She seems to be pretty nervous about something. One of the hotel workers, Miguel, advises Sydney to have 2 shots of sherry. Apparently, it calms the nerves. Turns out, Sydney has a vision restoring operation tomorrow. Doctors will help her see the world again. And just like that, she wakes up in the hospital. And immediately, something terrifying appears. Cancer. This is Alicia, Sydney's new friend. Apparently, she has a golf ball inside her head, and the doctors are trying to get it out, aka cancer moment. Not long after, it's time for Sydney to see. The doctor takes off the bandages, and Sydney opens her eyes. And it's kind of blurry, probably because of the 2 shots of sherry yesterday. Sydney tries to count how many fingers the doctor has, while her sister attempts to assist her, which I think is cheating. Anyway, Sydney is still a bit dizzy from yesterday. She even sees some shadows. Okay, maybe something weird is going on here. She gets back to her bed to have a rest. In the middle of the night, Sydney wakes up when her roommate, Miss Hillman, stops her usual heavy old person breathing, gets up, and says, I don't want to go. She then proceeds to walk away with some type of weird shadow. The CGI budget was low. Sydney follows. Where is she? Guess she's gone with the wind. Oh, there she is, moaning around. And gone again. Psych! She's behind. Ha, you got pretty scared, didn't you? Mrs. Hillman keeps dancing around for a minute, then disappears again. Oh well, back to sleep. The next day, Sydney wakes up and asks where Mrs. Hillman went. She's sleeping permanently. Rip in peace. Sydney goes in for a regular checkup and asks who was the donor for her eyes. The doctor's extremely dismissive, saying it doesn't even matter, which means he's probably covering up the fact it came from a hobo. Sydney asks when she's going to be able to see clearly again. I mean, it's been 15 years since you lost your eyesight, can't you wait a little bit more? The doctor suggests Sydney visits a specialist named Paul. Later, Sydney has a look at her reflection but can't even see herself. I guess it's time for that specialist. Sydney checks out and says goodbye to Alicia. Then the girl asks for a final picture together, which means we'll probably never see her again. Elon Musk, please cure cancer. Sydney finally goes home and enjoys her new life. Oh, surprise party. We meet many new blurry people that we'll never see again. Sydney seems to hate parties, so she goes off to be alone. Relatable. Finally, Sydney is alone to enjoy her violin. Wonder how she plays the skin flute. She hears something in the kitchen and goes to check. She takes interest in the oven and goes to touch it. And now she's on fire. Just kidding, it's a nightmare. Sydney wakes up and looks around. The walls begin to change like she's dreaming. Actually, kind of looks like one of those augmented reality things. She checks the clock and it's 1:06 a.m. The next day, Sydney heads in to meet the specialist. Dr. Paul says Sydney is okay, but she's probably in shock. You see, there's just too much information around to acknowledge. She's not used to it. He decides to take her out for a walk in the real world, so she gets even more confused. All the new sights are equally intriguing and confusing for Sydney. Slowly, she starts to enjoy her new life, until she hears some voices in a hall. It sounds like some kid is crying, which is never a good sign. She stumbles upon a kid sitting on the floor. He asks her if Sydney has seen her report card. Nah man, I dropped out. The boy is scared of how his father is going to react. He just disappears. Sydney refuses to consider these visions a problem and continues her daily routines. But her orchestrator can tell that something is up with her, which he deems as the best time to make his move. The dirty dog takes Sydney out for a coffee. At the cafe, he leaves her for a moment, and then it's time for a new hallucination. Damn, what did he put in her coffee? Whatever it is, it hits different, and Sydney ends up falling from a chair. She claims she saw a woman, but there was nothing there. Afterwards, Sydney gets back home, and I gotta say, the girl's got some cojones. That's some more Spanish for you. I don't remember what it means though. But yeah, there's zero chances I could sleep alone after all this stuff happening. Sydney hops in bed and the clock reads 1:06, which means it's time for a new nightmare. We got fire, a little girl screaming, a scary bald guy, kids throwing stones, Bruja. We've definitely seen this before. Sydney wakes up and keeps hallucinating. A rope in the chair from the beginning. This must all be connected somehow. Sydney takes some more tests, but Paul says her eyes are fine. She tells him about the hallucinations, but Paul thinks this silly girl is making things up. He reminds her that as a musician, she has a particularly vivid imagination. Upset, Sydney goes back home and greets her new TV and Netflix subscription. Wait, what's that? Smoke coming from the door? Instead of heading for the fire escape, Sydney decides to take things slowly. She takes a peek out the door and we get another obligatory jump scare. Her room smokes up, then she's suddenly in a room full of fire and burning people. We see a little girl, 1:06. Sydney awakens and finds her arm has burn marks, but then they fade away. New power unlocked. Healing factor. Top 10 anime powers. Anyways, Sydney goes out for a walk. Finally, I feel so uncomfortable being in that apartment. She tries to call her sister, but she's out, then almost gets hit by a car. She was way more perceptive when she was blind. Then, suddenly, a woman goes through her. Turns out this woman literally just died, which means she's a ghost. Ew, and that CGI thing grabs the girl. After, Sydney goes to chill out at a Chinese restaurant. She hits up Paul for some late-night teriyaki chicken, but then she notices that things feel off. The people around her are like zombies. They don't seem to notice her at all. Then everything around starts burning, and in an instant, the whole place gets blown up. The hallucination ends, and Sydney finds herself standing in the ashes. Pity, I was hoping to get spring rolls. At least Paul came through. Sydney opens up about all the things she's been seeing and experiencing, and Paul tells her she's crazy. Instead of proper treatment, our doctor here prefers to emotionally scream at Sydney and traumatize her even more. What can I say? This is American healthcare. After the abuse, Sydney gets back home. She wants to get back to Netflix. There's a new season of Stranger Things. However, she stumbles into an old perv in an elevator. Don't worry, they'll disappear when you turn 30. Fortunately, she acquires some common sense and slowly walks away. She inspects the elevator cameras, and the guy isn't there. Then a couple walks into the elevator and don't see him either. He must be a ghost. She waits for another elevator and it seems to be all clear. Until she gets in. She sees its reflection. He's behind her. Sydney starts spamming the elevator buttons, hoping it'll make it go faster. It doesn't work and the ghost slowly approaches her. We get a peek at his face, or what's left of it. The elevator opens and Sydney just makes it out and rushes to her door. And there's this annoying kid again. Again, he asks if she's seen his report card. Why don't you just drop out and trade NFTs or whatever? Turns out, he's a Terra Luna investor. So naturally, he jumps out the window. Sydney tries to save him, but it's too late. They've already launched Terra 2.0. And he's back inside. Sydney rushes off to her apartment and shuts out all the lights. Obviously, to make the ambiance even more thrilling. And we hear clocks saying 1:06. Sydney spends her next few days in her bed, not answering the annoying phone. Her sister's been calling, worried. Eventually, Paul comes to see her and finds that she's been hiding her eyes from the light. Paul is disappointed. He implores her not to be such a scaredy cat. If only he knew how bad things really were. Paul notices her injured arm and gets her to the hospital ASAP. While there, she sees a familiar friend, Alicia. Apparently, her golf ball is gone. Then she begins to walk away. Sydney follows and sees the CGI thing take her somewhere. She calls out to her, but it's too late. Sydney wakes up and finds her sister next to her. She says Alicia passed away and shows her their picture. Who is she? Asks Sydney, pointing to herself. Oh, that's Jessica Alba. She got the Golden Raspberry Award for this movie. Impossible, says Sydney in shock and goes to check IMDb. Okay, just kidding. It's her, but she can't recognize herself. Sydney rushes to a mirror and compares herself with the girl in the picture. She sees someone else, and she's not nearly as cute. It looks like instead, Sydney is seeing her eye donor in the mirror. She gets to Googling and learns everything about something called cellular memory. She goes to Paul to share her findings. Apparently, he already knows all about it. Of course, he's a doctor. Well, this information would have been useful, man. Sydney asks Paul to find her eye donor, but Paul mentions he can lose his license, which is the only thing that proves he's totally not a fake doctor. Sydney is jealous that he finds his license more important than her. Her manipulative tricks immediately work, and Paul feels guilty. Simp. After, Sydney goes home and finally she has some company, her sister. They get in the elevator and are accompanied by a Chinese woman. Sydney looks at her kind of funny. When the woman leaves, the little ghost boy is right behind her. Sydney is terrified and the woman notices. Suddenly, she says, "It's my Tommy, isn't it?" Whoa, who's Tommy? Asks Sydney's sister. Her son. He's dead. Huh, interesting. Next up, Sydney is in the shower. Potential thumbnail? Too risky. She gets out of the shower, stares at the mirror, and tries to contact her eye donor. Okay, you asked for it. Her eyes are forced open and she gets to see some more hallucinations. 106, screaming girls, flames. Yeah, I'm used to this by now. Sydney decides she's gonna get to the bottom of this all on her own. She heads off into a taxi, but then Paul stops her. Fortunately, the simp did all the homework for her, and he decides he'll ride with her all the way to Mexico to find the donor, or rather what's left of her. Thank you, Paul. You're my best friend. Uh-oh, he deserves better. Sydney's curious why he changed his mind. Perhaps he believes her? Well, by the look at his desperate eyes, I can tell you at this point, he doesn't care. Crazy or not, alive or dead, my man is on a mission. We find out that the eye donor's name is Anna and her mother worked at a factory. During the drive, a spicy boy hops at the car. This prompts the pair to stop and investigate further. Apparently there was a fire here. The local boys tell them that it was the Bruja who did it, aka witch. Looks like we're starting to see the whole picture now. Paul and Sydney find Anna's house and her mom inside. She isn't happy to have guests, but the moment she sees Sydney's eyes, she realizes that they're her daughters. Turns out Anna was indeed on that witch life. She could see dead people. Anna could predict when someone was close to death, but no one believed her. They thought Anna was the one who brought death, but no, she only saw it. Suddenly, Sydney sees something spooky behind Anna's mother, and she immediately gets a heart attack. Everyone springs into action, stuffing her into the car. Paul and Anna's son drive off, but Sydney stays behind to do some investigations. The house looks familiar. Sydney's been seeing it in her hallucinations after all. She sits on Anna's bed and gets right into her memories. We've seen these a million times, you get the idea. But now we get a closer look at the factory. Anna rushes in and begs people to leave, but they don't listen to her. No one trusts the Bruja. Also, her mom was inside, which is how she got those burns. Then, the tragedy happens. Naturally, everyone blames Anna. We're getting close to solving the mystery here. Sydney wakes up and hears something. It seems like someone's in the house, and they're in the basement. This must be Anna's final resting place. Sydney tries to save her, but it's too late. Rip in peace. Again, I guess. Isn't she already? Whatever. Sydney holds the girl and asks what she's supposed to do, but we don't get the answer. Meanwhile, Paul pulls up and watches as she talks to herself, after he informs her that Anna's mom passed away. Well, that sucks. What's the point of all this? Time to go home, I guess. I could think of at least a dozen fun things to do in Mexico, but whatever. They get to the border, but the traffic is blocked. There's some high-speed police pursuit on the other side, apparently. Suddenly, Sydney sees a familiar face. She starts staring at this girl like a lunatic, but then we realize that's the girl from the dreams. She sees spirits entering the car. Then she spots a big old bus and finds tons of evil CGI guys zooming inside. Inside the bus, she spots the final omen, 106. And that number is on a truck full of gasoline. I can only imagine what happens next. All these nightmares weren't Anna's dreams. It was a prophecy of the future. Sydney realizes something nasty is going to happen and rushes to warn people. Everyone reacts pretty normally, thinking, who is this crazy lady? Until she drops the, there's a bomb. And it works like a charm. Everyone rushes out. Unfortunately, amidst the chaos, the little girl's mother gets knocked out. At the same time, the car in police pursuit smashes into the gasoline truck. Sydney tries to get the girl out of the trailer, but she can't get out. Luckily, Paul comes in clutch and smashes the window. They get the girl and her mom out of the flames, and then boom. The tragedy happens, but no one gets hurt, except for Sydney. She gets an eye full of glass. To wrap it all up, Sydney saves some random people thanks to her eye donor nightmares. Now she can go back to living her happy blind life. Now that's what I call a happy ending. And what about Paul? He'll live the rest of his days as a simp. Moral of the story? Realize, realize, realize.